From the southeastern corner of western North Carolina, this is Folklore. I'm your host, James Hernisham. It's been a long time since being elected to serve as a delegate to a Democratic or Republican National Convention meant assuming responsibility for choosing a presidential ticket on behalf of the party members back in your congressional district. The last time the Democrats did that was in 1968, and the outcome was so terrible that the party rewrote the rules, transferring that responsibility from convention delegates to the entire party membership. That's why we now have primaries, and in a few states, caucuses. But this year, there is a significantly greater than zero chance that the Democrats will have to revert to what used to be called a brokered convention. The delegates representing each district in each state, including North Carolina 11, might have to choose among several candidates for president and vice president. Candidates who aren't named Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, even though they won the primaries. And I don't have to tell you why. No need to go into details. We all know what happened the night of June 27th in Atlanta. This isn't what the delegates signed up for. Well, technically they did, because the party convention rules spell out exactly what the delegates are supposed to do if something happens to the presumptive nominee between the time that he wins the primaries and accepts the nomination in August. I was hoping that one of the 5 delegates for NC-11 might be from Polk County, but no such luck. But this issue, how would the delegates who were supposed to represent our county's Democrats actually do that in the event that Joe Biden withdraws it sometime in the next few weeks, is just too important to ignore. Fortunately, I didn't have to go too far afield. Kathie Kline, chair of the Buncombe County Democrats, is one of those 5 convention delegates. We talked at her home in Asheville just 5 days after the debate that introduced so much doubt to the whole process. Kathie Kline, welcome to Folklore.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks for finding the time, because I know this is a busy time for anyone involved in national politics.
Well, it is, and I'm very happy to be here.
My first question is, I would like to better understand, what is it that a delegate to a national convention is all about? And so maybe you can tell me a little bit about yourself and how you ended up, first, how you ended up involved in Democratic politics, and second, how you ended up as a delegate for our district.
Okay. Sure. I have been a lifelong Democrat. My first election that I voted in was in 1972. And over the years, I have participated as a volunteer knocking on doors or phone banking for various Democratic candidates. I got involved with the local Democratic Party as an organization on a very regular basis in 2017. I think that after Donald Trump was elected the first time, I realized that I couldn't sit back and not participate more actively. So I became a precinct chair, and then I did a lot of other things with the party, including serving as second vice chair of the district for a period of time, then being first vice chair of the county, and now the chair. In order to become a delegate in the district, we had to declare our candidacies prior to the district convention this year. And we made speeches, and then there was an election, and there were 5 people chosen to represent the district at the Democratic National Convention. 3 of those people were from Buncombe County, and then there were 2 other candidates, one from Haywood and one from Cherokee County, who also were elected. And we were really excited that we have kind of a good representation across the district as a result of that election. Each of our delegates are elected to represent not only the Democrats of North Carolina and our districts, but to represent the president as well. All of our delegates are bound to our candidate, and in our case, all of us are bound to President Biden and Vice President Harris. That is a standard that is once we have become a delegate, we have pledged ourselves to a candidate, and so we stand firmly behind that candidate. We also, as delegates, are the only ones who have the legal authority to nominate candidates for president and vice president. So no one else can do that but the delegates. And there are delegates not only from the district, but there are superdelegates and there are other levels of delegates that are being sent from each of the states. We are the only ones who have the authority to approve the party's platform, and that is one of our main duties that we will do when we go to the convention in Chicago.
Now, party conventions used to be, back prior to 1972, a really crazy place where you never knew what was going to happen and who the nominee was going to end up being. And the party platform was kind of up in the air as well. But over the years, it's become more of an administrative task that not too many people find that exciting. I mean, people don't watch gavel-to-gavel coverage anymore, and the networks don't provide it. So how do you expect this year's convention to go? Outside of the question about Biden, because we can get to the nominees later, but just generally, how do you expect this convention to go, and what are the things you're looking forward to and sinking your teeth into?
One of the new things that we're going to be doing is having a virtual vote before the convention, probably in about 3 weeks. And that will actually complete that official duty of nominating President Biden and Vice President Harris. So that is new. It is true that a lot of the convention is going to be basically formalities. It's ceremonial more than anything. We will have good speeches. We will vote on the platform. One thing that I really appreciate about Democrats is that we actually have a platform that is based on recommendations for policy, whereas my understanding of the Republican platform is that there isn't one.
Well, there wasn't one last.
Right. And there's not supposed to be one this time. And so, and it seems that it's all just surrounding, the Republicans are just wrapping their arms around former President Trump. And it seems curious to me that there's not that much interest in policy as there is in just following a leader who happens to be a convicted felon.
Well, you're not the first person to express some curiosity about how the Republican Party has become what some describe as a cult of personality. Trump, obviously Republicans might bristle at that notion. Former President Trump certainly did pursue real policies. He gave extraordinary tax breaks to the wealthy, and he appointed 3 Supreme Court justices who have been some of the most consequential appointments in the history of the country.
That's correct.
Without getting into whether you like that or not.
Yeah.
So do we need to do more than just endorse the nominee if we generally agree with the nominee's basic ideas of what the nominee wants to do? I think we do, but I'd like to hear what are the kind of policies we need to be talking about. You must have some things you care about that you want to see the party embrace, and the exact wording in the platform is up for discussion, right?
You mean in the Democratic Party platform? I'm actually really excited about the Democratic Party platform. And there are so many things in it that are worthwhile, addressing environmental concerns, encouraging healthcare reforms, public education, supporting public education, transportation issues. There are so many things that really are impacting Americans.
So you have responsibilities because you are a representative of the district. How do you fulfill that duty to represent the people of District 11? Is it simply because you were elected and therefore your judgment has been approved by the members of the party? Or do you go to some effort to think about what the people of or at least the Democrats in District 11 want to see on the platform?
My understanding and my commitment is to fulfill the duties that were pretty much placed on me when I was elected as a Biden delegate. When I ran as a Biden delegate, and I have to honor that unless something were to change. I'm not sure yet what the details will be in terms of the national platform. I will look at that. I will make my best judgment. I was elected to be one of those votes in favor or against the party platform.
I'm just curious, do you feel it necessary to maybe tour some other counties, talk to local precinct chairs, get their thoughts? Is that part of your duties?
My obligation is to certainly hear from anyone in the district if they have any interest in sharing with me what their concerns are. I would love to hear from them, and I would welcome that input. I'm in touch with a lot of the county party chairs, so I have a lot of engagement with them, and they know that I'm in this role as one of the delegates, and they would surely feel free to contact me. But I would welcome any kind of input from Democrats who want me to take a certain position if it makes sense to me, and if after I consult with other people within the state Democratic Party, and if it doesn't run counter to what our basic platform is as a state, then I can go ahead and propose or promote their ideas if it makes sense.
So at the very least, you are inviting input from, say, anyone in Polk County who considers themselves part of the Democratic Party can contact you and say, here's what I think should be doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I will not be able to make any kind of promises about the outcome because I will be working with the delegation, the entire North Carolina delegation.
Of course. And you are there's what, 5 of you, I guess, from the district?
There are 5 of us from the district, and then there will certainly be certain superdelegates or party leader delegates. I believe, yes, Julie Mayfield, one of our state senators from this area, will also be joining us. I believe there are 130 delegates total from North Carolina.
And there's about 4,000 at the convention.
Yes.
Just because the superdelegates, they only get to vote on the second ballot and further ballots if there are any.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about nominations because I don't think this would be an interesting discussion if we were having this a week ago, because a few days ago we had this debate where everyone agrees the president didn't do very well. His challenger told 90 minutes of fabrications. It must have been a disappointment for just about everybody. And everyone I've talked to is extremely disappointed in how that debate went. And the Democratic Party has more or less closed ranks and said, look, that was a bad day. We can't judge the president on 90 minutes. We need to judge him on 3.5 years. And even if you're a Republican, you have to concede that Biden signed enormously consequential legislation, and the Democratic Party, with the thinnest of margins in Congress, managed to pass extraordinarily consequential legislation. And again, you don't have to agree with it, but you have to concede that. So it is a really difficult thing to say, well, Mr. President, you did great, but that debate performance was troubling, and we have to think about replacing you on the ticket. So I want to talk just briefly about your role as a delegate, because you are a pledged Biden delegate. That's the way the system works. You were elected knowing that that meant you were going to have to support Biden at the convention.
That's correct.
Because that's the way primaries have worked since 1972.
That's right.
However, there is a fudge phrase in the Democratic Party charter that specifying your duties that says, in good conscience, you need to vote the way that you are pledged. But if you have some sort of difficulty doing that, things can change. So what, if anything, would need to happen for you to question or to second guess your obligation to be a pledged Biden delegate?
So my obligation is tied in with the fact that 14 million Democrats have already voted for Joe Biden in the primaries, and that is twice as many as those that voted for Obama for his reelection. And so I have an obligation to those people who voted for Biden earlier during all the primary elections. So that's one piece. The other piece is, yes, I was not thrilled about the way that debate went, and I was concerned. But what struck me also was there's a lot of news media talking a lot about replacing Joe Biden, and I'm a little surprised that when Donald Trump was convicted on 35 counts, 34 counts, I think it was 34, there was no call, there was no conversation even about replacing him as the Republican nominee. So I find that very interesting. I do have concerns. My understanding is that if Joe Biden doesn't, on his own volition, make a decision to step down, then he will be our nominee. It would create so much chaos for us to have a few of us stepping in and saying, we want him to not run, we want to replace him. There is so much research indicating that if there is a divided convention, a chaotic convention, we will lose anyway. So it seems clear to me that there is really no benefit to the Democratic Party for us to encourage or advise delegates to change their pledge, to change everything that they have agreed to do to remove Joe Biden from the ballot. Such a hard topic.
Well,
It's so hard to talk about this.
it is a really hard topic, and I appreciate you being willing to do it. But I feel it's one that has to be worked through.
Yes,
We
it does.
cannot just go through the rest of the season pretending that this isn't a hard topic we have to come to deal with. And also, I think there's probably a statistically measurable chance that one or both of the nominees of the parties will have a health issue between now and November. We have to think about what could happen in August at the convention, or even between the convention and November. But I'm talking to you because between now and 7 weeks from now at the convention, some more things could happen.
Right.
Joe Biden could demonstrate convincingly by holding a series of unscripted interviews with less than friendly interviewers and demonstrate that he's on the top of his game and that last week's debate was just a bad night. Or the opposite could happen. And so I want to get inside your head. It's like, surely you as a delegate and your fellow delegates must be staying awake at night thinking about these scenarios.
It's not keeping me awake at night because the pathway is clear to me. And that is that I am a pledged Biden delegate, and I will be unless he makes the choice to step down. And it's not necessarily my first choice in terms of how this should play out. It is what my obligation is as a member of our party. And I do believe that his record stands alone as one of the finest records for a president in our nation in many decades. I think he has done an incredibly good job. I think he has served our country with decency and integrity and honesty. I have concerns about his status currently, but I am not prepared to just make a decision to pull my support, even though I was elected as a Biden delegate, I have that obligation. And I have that obligation to all of the Democrats that supported him in the last series of primaries. So I'm not 100% excited about the position we're in right now. We do have 7 weeks. Maybe something will shift. I really, and I'm so open to hearing from other people. And I have been hearing from people. I have been emailed and contacted with people saying exactly what needs to be done and why it needs to change, why we need a different candidate. But the only thing that I would do is if President Biden did decide to step down and he presented his nominee, I would then move my pledge to that nominee. But that would be the only thing I would do because I am a Biden delegate.
All right. Well, you'll be happy to know I'm not going to ask you to speculate beyond that.
Good.
Because you're right. The chances that you'll have to choose among, a dozen other candidates at this point is, who knows,
Right.
But when you were elected back in April, was it?
Yes.
Okay. We were still kind of riding on Joe Biden's State of the Union speech, which was a barnstormer, and everyone was so happy. And do you remember the columnist Ezra Klein? If you've ever listened to him, he wrote this piece in the New York Times back in February saying, I think Biden's got to go. I don't think he's up to the job. But then a week later, State of the Union speech, and Ezra had to say, okay, I was wrong.
Yes.
Now he's back in the I'm worried part again. So you're saying, well, you're worried too. You'd be foolish not to be worried because the fate of the nation is at stake.
That's right.
But the way the party system works, it's not up to you to start deviating from the plan.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
Well, that's basically all I wanted to understand about this process. So thanks very much. How long will you be spending in Chicago? Like, how big a deal is this for a delegate?
We will be there 4.5, 5 days.
I mean, as a journalist, I have covered in Canada the equivalent of a national convention. But in Canada, we don't do the whole primary thing. So it is very much, at least back then, it was very much you got to vote on and you didn't know who was going to end up being a thing. And it is extremely exciting.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying to you is I kind of hope it's not too exciting for you, because I don't think delegates to a national party's convention that's not what you signed up for in 2024, right? This isn't the 60s or the 50s. You didn't sign up to have to make these decisions within hours. But if you have to do that, where will you turn for advice? What kind of guidance can you draw on?
Oh, I have so many people that I turn to for lots of guidance. I would talk to our state party chair, Anderson Clayton. I would be talking to a lot of the state party leadership. I would be making calls to our former county party chair, Jeff Rose, who has been just a wonderful leader here in Buncombe County for a number of years. And I would certainly have to wrestle with my own conscience if we were faced with some kind of an alternative decision. And I would have to have lots of conversations with a lot of people. I am not anticipating a chaotic convention because honestly, I think Democrats really do understand that unity at that convention is the only way we're going to win. And if for some reason Joe Biden did step down and he presented a new nominee, I think the party would just fall right into line because the real danger is Donald Trump. He is the person that will truly, we risk our democracy in so many ways if Donald Trump wins in November. And I think that's the part that is so concerning to me, is that there is a very bad man running. And then, yes, an old man running against him. But I would choose the old man so quickly compared to the very bad man. And that's, to me, the bottom line. And I know that that's going to be hard for a lot of people who look at, they're making a decision based on image. They're basing their decision on what he looks like and how he has trouble articulating when he has had a speech impediment all of his life. And we understand that. So there are people that are going to make those judgments based on appearances rather than the substance of what each of them have done. And what I would like to see would be to have the whole nation of Democrats and unaffiliated voters really line up and support whoever our nominee is. And I do think it will be Joe Biden. And that we recognize that the choice is very clear. It's, we don't want to be the nation that just votes on people based on how they look on a camera and how they act very strong and confident, even if they're lying in everything they say. So there's a real difference in candidates.
What you're saying is you have confidence that the Democratic Party is, unlike the Republican Party, is not a cult of personality. And whether it's Joe Biden or Kamala Harris or somebody else, the party will embrace the unified choice rather than...
Yes, I am counting on that. I trust that. I know that there are differences on policy, and there are some pretty severe differences on policy right now, understandably. And I fall along a lot of the lines. For example, the situation in Gaza really concerns me. It's very troubling. But I also understand that our relationships with allies are more complicated than a lot of people understand. And so for us to, if we were going to just drop an ally because we didn't agree with him, as that would be the case with some of the Israeli leaders, then I would say NATO would have dumped Donald Trump during his presidency because he was just so challenging and so unsupportive and so egregiously off base in terms of what their goals were. So you can't just toss someone because you don't agree with them if they're an official ally. If you're formally allied with a nation, you don't necessarily get to dictate how things are going to unfold.
So you need to defer to people who actually understand how tricky geopolitics.
That's right. That's right.
Which I assume what you're saying is Joe Biden is such.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Well, we could talk about different policy issues all day, but I think we've covered what I hope to get out of this episode, which is an understanding of the roles and responsibilities and maybe the pressure on delegates to the convention, which is going to be probably a little bit different. Hopefully it won't be as crazy as 1968, but it should be interesting.
Well, and I've been reading quite a bit about what happened in 68, and we had the Vietnam War, and Hubert Humphrey was selected after Lyndon Johnson decided not to run because he knew with the Vietnam War he wasn't going to be able to win, but he selected somebody who adopted the same policies. And so this is not really a policy concern this year. This is a different kind of concern. And so I don't see a lot of parallels to 1968. I think we're talking about a really different kind of scenario.
All right. Well, look, obviously you've given this an awful lot of thought. I'm really glad that you agreed to talk to me about this. So thanks again, and good luck in Chicago.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode. I'm planning to take a break until late August or early September, when it will be time to start interviewing the candidates who want to represent the entire county, either of the congressional districts into which Polk was split this year, and maybe even some higher offices. I'll do as many as I can. Should be fun. You can always reach me with suggestions and feedback by emailing jamesh@polklore.com. Thanks for listening.